Good morning, everyone. That was nice. My name is Carolyn Barnwell, and I've come to North Chapel sporadically over the last few years, and I joined the choir in the fall, and it has been so nourishing to be here regularly. This is my first time being service coordinator. Today is the first day of March. I can see the muddy footprints are starting. And the theme for this month is Side with Love. There's a wonderful quote from Ashley Horan on the order of service, which I'd love to read so we can savor this together as opening words. You are loved beyond belief. You are enough. You are precious. Your work and your life matter, and you are not alone. You are part of a we, a great cloud of witnesses, living and dead, who have insisted that this beautiful, broken world of ours is a blessing worthy of both deep gratitude and fierce protection. Our ancestors and our descendants are beckoning us, compelling us onward toward greater connection, greater compassion, greater commitment to one another and to the earth. Our minister, Leon Dunkley, will be giving the reflection today. And there are a few people I know who would like to come up and do announcements. So this is that time.
Hi, I'm Linda Galveo, and I just wanted to let everyone know about the Zach's Place documentary. It is not available in theaters generally. It's only going around to film festivals, and it's won awards at film festivals. So the White River Indie Festival is this week, and the movie called Unscripted Lives is playing on Thursday the 5th at 2:30 p.m. at the Briggs Opera House. And it really is wonderful. It's a great, even if I didn't know anyone in it, it's a great movie. So I thought I would leave this maybe on the back table for people to look at, or you could take a picture of it with your phone if you want. I recommend it.
Good morning, Mary Blanton. It's wonderful to be back and see all of you. And a number of you have asked me about my experience in India. And if you're really curious, not just asking to be polite, I'm going to be talking about it next Saturday at 2 o'clock in the parlor. So please come if you are really interested. Thanks.
There are lots of things going on at North Chapel each week. Please take the time to read the many announcements in your order of service. And you can visit the church website for all the news. I also would like to make an announcement and remind everyone that Tuesday is town meeting day. So if you live in Barnard, Bridgewater, Killington, Plymouth, Pomfret, Reading, or Woodstock, I encourage you to make a plan to go vote in person and check if any of your neighbors need a ride. Please vote for building a new school in Woodstock for our district. It is the best of three bad options, and it will never get any cheaper than right now. Back to today at North Chapel. So Tatum is here for spiritual exploration with children of all ages. And if you're visiting today, we would love to have you sign the guest book at the back of the church. There are hearing devices and large print hymns and order of services at the back of the church if anyone needs them. And a little reminder to please turn off your cell phones or other devices. After the service, all are invited to join us downstairs for coffee, tea, and snacks in the social hall to visit with one another. After I saw that this month's theme was Side with Love, I found myself thinking about a project by the writer Elizabeth Gilbert called Letters from Love. A few years ago, Liz began a simple practice. She would sit down each week and write a letter, not to love, but from love. She'd start with a question like, "Dear unconditional love, what would you have me know today?" And then she would listen. What came through was a voice that was steady, kind, clear, a voice that said things like, "You are not broken. You do not have to earn your worth. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to try again." I've read a lot of these letters, so I can feel that flowing. Over time, she opened this practice to others, inviting guest writers to share their own letters from love. What's striking is that even though the writers are different and from all over the country and the world, the tone of love is remarkably consistent. Love doesn't shame, love doesn't rush, love doesn't abandon us when we're afraid or uncertain. I looked to see what the top guest letter is, and it was from one of my favorite wise ones, Dr. Martha Beck. And so I'll read her letter now. "Dear love, what would you have me know today? My tiny acorn, my love, my child, sit with me a moment and put down your worries, your desperate strategies, your doubts and fears. You will never know lasting peace as long as you need everyone in the world to be happy with you at the same time. It cannot be accomplished, tiny angel, no matter how much you try, and oh, how you try. But you simply cannot do it, my love. You simply cannot keep everybody pleased. You couldn't do it in childhood, and you cannot now as a grown woman. Trying to keep everybody pleased with you makes you tired and worn down and discouraged, as would any job that is innately impossible. So stop. Why would we send you to the earth to do impossible jobs? Silly little weary bumblebee, let that hard work go. Allow me to be the one who unceasingly loves and approves of you so that you don't need to seek it from others. This will be a relief to both you and them. If you let me love you, if you really sink down into this love, you can allow everyone else to come and go without drama, without clinging, without fear. And people will always come and go from your life, little one. That is the natural way of things. Nobody is meant to stay forever. Let other people have their journeys. Let other people have their feelings. Let other people have their own experiences. There is no higher respect you could offer to another human being than to allow them to hold their own opinions, even about you. Allow it. Surrender and allow it, and carry on with your own journey. All is well, dearest one. All is going to plan. Relax your shoulders now. Relax your heart. Listen to me speaking to you from the very center of yourself, from the very center of love itself. You know who you belong to, and that is all that matters. You belong to me, little one. You are made of love. You are made of me. That is settled law. Know this truth, and you will know peace. Now shut this book and sit with me for a moment in the stillness. Have a gentle day. Stay with me. I love you. We will now have a time of silence for meditation and prayer.
Good morning. This reflection was inspired by an album that I got years and years ago. It's pictured on the cover of your order of service. It's called Good News. And I was just laughing with Carolyn because the Barnwell is one of the members of the group. Bernice Johnson-Regan is the person who I kind of cleave to. She's brilliant and so insightful, and I've seen her in concert by herself, just her and a calabash and a chair and a glass of water, 2 hours, and I was riveted the whole time. And I met Issei Barnwell in Florida years and years ago. We were she's Unitarian, and we were at a conference, and I said, "Oh, I've loved your music, and I'm a songwriter myself." And she said, "Can you play me one of your songs?" Because she doesn't waste any time. She didn't know my name. And I said, I don't have my guitar, it's back at my room. And she went. So I went back to my room and I got my guitar. What was funny about the story was that Carolyn Barnwell said of Issei Barnwell, "I hope we're related," And I can't imagine that you're not, so. That's a beautiful bit of good news. So what's the good news, I ask of God this morning, and what do you think the answer will be? I think the answer will be, the good news is beauty, because all things meet in beauty. Truth and falsehood meet in beauty. Good and evil meet in beauty, love and indifference. War and peace, meaning and meaninglessness meet in beauty, and of this meeting something of heaven slowly grows. For beauty is growth, and is grace, and is God, and because of all of this, we are living. So much that we cherish rises up from beauty, and we know just where to look for beauty, especially when things are hard, right? The answer is in our hymnals. It's in the back of the hymnals. It's reading number 77 towards the back of the book. We say, "Seek not afar for beauty, lo, it glows in dew-wet grasses all about your feet. In birds, in sunshine, childish faces sweet, in stars and mountain summits topped with snows. Go not abroad for happiness. Behold, it is a flower blooming at your door." If we want the good news about beauty, all we have to do is ask. I asked. I Asked is the name of a beautiful song by a woman named Becca Stevens. She plays it with a group called Snarky Puppy. I'm rather drawn to bands with dog names now. I don't know why. The music is great, the lyrics are spare, even though the song is very long. The lyrics are these: I asked my love, what do you need to make your wild heart beat? And this, my love, he said to me wholeheartedly, whatever makes you happy, darling, whatever makes you smile for me, whatever makes you happy, that's all I need. And in sober times, when troubles find a taste for gravity, I ask myself, what do you need to let the weight release? I ask my love, what do you need to make your wild heart beat? What is your brave answer to these questions, especially in times as harsh as these? My brave answer is that I want two of my old friends to meet, Mary Rachel Berg and Jesse Jackson. I want them to meet for lunch. Mary Rachel Berg was one of the people who knew all the names of the flowers in the neighborhood. She could easily tell the difference between coltsfoot and buttercup, even though they used to look exactly the same to me. It's actually pretty easy to tell the difference between the two, but you have to care about the details. You have to appreciate the subtleties to understand the differences. You have to pay attention to the complexity. You have to savor flowers, and I didn't at the time. Not when I first moved to Pittsburgh in the 90s. Not until I met a woman named Mary Rachel Berg. Mary was in her mid-70s, more than twice as old as I was at the time. I was new to Pittsburgh, and I wasn't planning to stay. I thought I was only visiting for a semester, but then that changed. My graduate school was in Maryland, 9 miles outside of Baltimore. I was showing an interest in the study of African music, so my mentor urged me to study with the very best Africanist that he knew, a man from Ghana whose name was Kwabena Nketia. Kwabena Nketia. He was world famous when I knew him, but he wasn't always. When he first started out in his academic journey, he seemed like every other visiting professor from overseas. They didn't take him that seriously. They actually renamed him when he got stateside. They didn't appreciate his African name, so they gave him an American one. They called him Joseph Hansen. Over time, he distinguished himself. He published, his gifts became obvious. His fame and his stature grew, so he laid down his American name and he returned to his African one. Kwabena Nketia was a dignified man. I learned a lot from him. I learned a lot about African music, but more deeply, I learned about joy and resilience. I learned about dignity and grace. I learned about the things that lay beneath the music. So I knew I wanted to study with him because he was abstract and weird like me. I didn't know that he was going to change my life. All I knew was that I had to move to Pittsburgh in order to take his classes. And I knew that when I moved that I would need a place to stay. That's how I met Mary Rachel Berg. Mary Rachel was gentle and friendly and a conservative woman. She was very polite. She never cursed. We did not have that in common. She wore sweaters every day, cardigans. It was her thing. I knew very few people like her. She kept her home very clean, her old Victorian home in Shadyside, the home in which she had raised her family. Her husband had passed away, and her kids had moved away, so she lived in the old family home all by herself. She opened her home to me, free of charge at first. She said that I could stay for 3 weeks or so, which is the time I thought I'd need to find an apartment. Finding an apartment in Pittsburgh that year was challenging for me. I wasn't having much luck, and as the time in Shadyside was nearing its end, I started getting nervous. That was about the time that I came home from school and I saw Mary Rachel standing in the front yard of her house, staring at the ground beneath her feet. Now, winter was ending at this time. It was the last of the snow was finally melting away. Mary Rachel was just standing there with this photograph in her hand. staring down at the ground as if she had lost something. "What are you doing?" I asked. She said, "I'm trying to remember where the colt's foot were last year." And I said, what's a colt's foot? Right. And she said, "A colt's foot is a little yellow flower." And she showed me the photograph that she was holding. And I took a look. And I was surprised by the photo because there were little yellow flowers all over the front lawn. So I laughed a little, and she said, "Why are you laughing?" without breaking her focus. She was still staring at the ground. I said, "Well, it looks like there are going to be coltfoot flowers all over the place pretty soon." And she laughed and said, "About half of those yellow flowers in the photograph are dandelions. And most of the remaining ones are buttercup. Coltfoot has thin petals." And she pointed out examples to me. And when she did, I saw something that I had not seen before. And I was quietly amazed. In a surprising way, I felt my own wild heart beat. And Mary Rachel saw that in me and felt satisfied that she had touched me in that way. It was a quiet moment of connection. And then she said, "If you're having trouble finding an apartment, you can stay here if you like. I enjoy having you around." And I felt touched. And I enjoyed each day in Shadyside, so I took her up on it. Outwardly, we were odd housemates, but inwardly, we were twin spirits. We were really mindful of each other. We gave each other privacy for the most part, but we'd watch the nightly news together every evening. Me and Mary and her chocolate Labrador, who was pretty old and had a flatulence issue. The dog would make his announcements every evening like clockwork, and Mary Rachel wouldn't say anything. She wouldn't react at all. So I would just sit there in the silence, wondering if I was being tested. It was the early 1990s. The Cold War had ended, and the Clarence Thomas and O.J. Simpson scandals had not happened yet. These were pre-cell phone days for me. When the house phone rang, I'd get anxious, and I'd race to answer the phone as quickly as I could. I hated the thought of Mary Rachel having to get up from her comfy chair and answer a call that was for me. Most of the calls, of course, were for Mary, but I was disciplined. I almost always answered the phone. Mary Rachel had monthly lunches with different sets of female friends, different sets of sweater-wearing women who, in their 70s, who didn't know their flowers as well as Mary Rachel did. She came home after one of her lunches with a funny smile on her face. I asked her what she was smiling about, and she told me, but the smile never went away. She said that she had been questioned by the women at her luncheon, all of whom had had the same experience. "What experience?" I asked. She said that each of the women in the lunch group had called her over the past 30 days. And each time, the same well-mannered young man had answered the phone, whether they called morning, noon, or night. My heart sank. In my efforts to relieve my host from having to answer a phone that was for me, I had created the impression that she was involved in something shocking and shameful and nefarious. I asked my love, "What do you need to make your wild heart beat?" I was embarrassed, and I was horrified all at once. "What did you tell them?" I asked. She smiled and said, "I didn't tell them a thing." She let them believe whatever they wanted to believe. She didn't care about what they thought. I can't convey her level of satisfaction. I thought to myself, now there's a wild heart for sure, right there. And we laughed with one another, and we watched the news together, and her old dog farted, and all was good in Pittsburgh. Mary Rachel studied yellow flowers, coltsfoot, buttercup, and dandelion. She cared enough to understand their differences. She loved the differences. The differences were what made life more beautiful for her. The harder you look, the more beauty you find. This is something that we seem to be forgetting at this moment. We'd be wise to look more carefully at things. What if our good country were more like Mary Rachel's front yard in Shadyside? And what if those little yellow flowers that were getting ready to bloom beneath her feet, what if we were those little yellow flowers? What if we cared enough about one another to understand our differences and not bomb them? What if we savored one another and savored life enough to love our differences? Because our differences make us all more beautiful. What kind of groundwork would we need to make that so? How well would we need to till the soil to make such a garden grow? Good morning and good Sunday. I hope that this new day finds you well. Today is Sunday, February 29th in the year 2006, which is not a leap year, but I suggest that we take the good leap anyway. My cousin is probably 60, 65 today, Allison, and she was born on February 29th, so she's really only had 13 birthdays or so, however it goes. Well, I didn't do the math. But anyway, let's take the good leap anyway, and let that be the good news for today. Because, after all, why not? Let's leap into the good news because this is the title of this morning's reflection. It asks, how do we build the good house of hope in times as harsh as these? It asks, where can we always turn to find the good news each day? James Baldwin reminds us that faith is the evidence of things not seen. It was one of the titles of his books later in his life. These are powerful words, and not just because James Baldwin lived through harsh times, much like these times. Our words of faith are powerful not because we choose to live through harsh times, but because of how we choose to love through them. How do we love through times as harsh as these? James Baldwin chose to love through harsh times, and this choice made him powerful. Sure, he was an excellent writer, but his choice to love makes his writing extraordinary. He chose joy and resilience. He chose dignity and grace, these things that lay beneath his writing. It was the same way with Martin. In a book called The Strength to Love, Martin Luther King reminded us that we must not stop with the cultivation of a tough mind. The gospel also demands a tender heart. MLK reminded us that we are called to be people of conviction, not conformity, of moral nobility, and not social respectability. Both Baldwin and King understood the suction and the seduction of social conformity, the great gravity of it. And they warned us about the dangers of overly simplistic advice. MLK reminded us of the old adage, do not conform is difficult advice in a generation when the crowd pressures have unconsciously conditioned our minds and have unconsciously conditioned our feet to move to the rhythmic drumbeat of the status quo. Do we feel this conditioning today? Is it still hard to find and keep our balance when seductive gravity is always working against us, when seductive gravity is always trying to bring us down? Just like it brought down Renee Good and brought down Keith Porter in Los Angeles, like it brought down Alex Pretty and brought down Charlie Kirk in Utah. Just like seductive gravity brought down Martin Luther King in Memphis. Jesse Jackson was there at the time. On April the 4th in 1968, he was standing on the balcony of the old Lorraine Motel next to his mentor, Martin Luther King, when King was assassinated. There was no one closer. Jim Williams of CBS News would report that King had teased Jackson about his casual attire before dinner, and Jesse Jackson responded, He said that the prerequisite for eating was an appetite and not a tie. And MLK said, "You're crazy." And they laughed together. And moments later, as Dr. King and Reverend Jackson and others stood on the balcony, those shots rang out. 50 years later, Jackson recalled how he felt in 1968, still in the grip of those feelings. Jackson said, "I was traumatized. I was full of pain and anger and sorrow and desperation and many emotions at the same time." He said, "What I was clear on was that we could not let one bullet kill a whole movement. I was clear that if you were playing the big game and the best player gets hurt, you can't forfeit the game. You can't run away. You've got to keep fighting." Jesse Jackson died last week on the 17th of February. What might he have thought about Iran? I had a committee on ministry meeting that day on the 17th at 11 o'clock. I was looking forward to that meeting. I woke up early and I was cleaning my kitchen and had the news playing in the background. And they were replaying some footage from 1988, old footage that I hadn't heard in a long time. I heard the passion and the promise of Jesse Jackson's voice. He was dreaming really big back then. He was saying, "When you see Jesse Jackson, when my name goes up on the presidential nomination, your name goes up on the presidential nomination too. I was born in the slum, but the slum was not born in me, and it wasn't born in you, and you can make it. Hold your head high, stick your chest out. You can make it. It gets dark sometimes, but the morning comes. Don't you surrender. Suffering breeds character, character breeds faith. And in the end, faith will not disappoint. You must not surrender. You may or may not get there, but just know that you are qualified. And hold on and hold out. You must never surrender. America will get better and better. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. America will get better. We need to have faith like Jesse's. What he dreamed is now ours to do. I was 23 years old in 1988, about the same age that Jesse was when Martin Luther King was killed. Jesse chose to love in harsh times. He had the strength to love. He chose to savor life. He paid attention to the flowers. When I learned that he passed away, I cried, which was surprising. And then I cried out. I screamed at the dirty dishes in my sink. And Jocko came over to my side. I looked down at him and I said, "I'm okay. I'm okay." And Jocko seemed to know that already. He was totally calm, even after I was yelling at my sink. Time stood still for me. Time did not stand still for my committee. At 11:30, they finally texted me, "Are you coming?" I was already a half an hour late. 3 hours had gone by, and I hadn't left the kitchen, and I hadn't eaten breakfast, and I hadn't walked Jocko, and I hadn't showered, and I hadn't dressed. For hours, I was just stunned beyond belief. So I apologized to the committee. I felt really bad about missing that meeting. But I learned something about myself, that I care so deeply about people like Jesse Jackson. He paid such a beautiful attention to the world, this world, our world. Even now, he saves and savors it. E.B. White once said, "I arise in the morning torn between the desire to improve or save the world and the desire to enjoy or savor the world. This makes it really hard to plan the day." End quote. It seems disingenuous that we don't do these things together when we pretend that there are ways to save the world without savoring it. When we pretend that there are ways to savor the world without saving each other and ourselves. And how do we do such a thing? We pay attention. Mary Rachel Berg had the right idea. She paid attention. She could tell the difference between a whole range of yellow flowers, coltsfoot, buttercup, dandelion, her list goes on and on. She paid close attention to things. This was for her an act of love. It was the same for Jesse Jackson in a different way. Their priorities were in the right place. They cared about the little flowers of the world. They cared about us in ways that made us feel real and seen and beautiful and known. We have to pay attention. We have to save and savor precious life. We have to care enough and love enough to appreciate our differences. That's the good news. Heaven is buried in our attention, and heaven is buried in our heart. And to find it, the first thing we need to do is notice. Heaven is not a scandal. Love is not a controversy. Time is not fast approaching like a broadside accident. Most things are not breaking news, so rest. We need us at our best. Life is a little yellow flower, trying to remember how to bloom, trying to remember how to blossom, how to jump into the morning of the world. We are all little yellow flowers. Little yellow flowers of a great big holy heart. That's the good news. That's what makes the wild heart beat. The good news, this album that was recorded in 1980 was recorded at a Unitarian church in Washington, D.C. They sang a song that said, I got a robe into that kingdom, ain't that good news? I got a robe into that kingdom, ain't that good news? I'm gonna lay down this world and I'm gonna shoulder up my cross and I'm gonna take it home to my Jesus. Ain't that good news? It's good news that chooses to find beauty in a broken world. It's good news that learns to save and savor what we can in life. It's good news that loves and deeply appreciates the subtlety of flowers, the complexity of loves, the miracle of lives. And as we move forward in this war in Iran, connecting more with Israel than we are to our own Congress, a Congress that is trying to make sense of itself after a divisive State of the Union, and trying to matter amidst the epic fail of exhaustion of the Epstein catastrophe. The good news, though, the good news is that we can stand apart from this. The good news is that we can hold fast to the morning star, for forever we are prisoners of hope. Now, we keep hope alive. Even in this great, egregious darkness before the dawn, the eastern marker, the moral horizon, is where the sun comes up. And it is always quite clear to us. The sunrise of beauty is near, reachable, tangible, touchable, close. Seek not afar for beauty, though it glows in the dew-wet grasses all about your feet. So pay attention to life. Learn to savor all of its flowers. With both feet on the ground, look around them for the coming beauty. Know in your heart that the flowers are really not so far away, and trust what you know. The flowers are coming soon. Spring is less than 3 weeks away. Okay, not in Vermont. But you know what I mean. What we need to do is make this spring fantastic. What do we need to make it so? I ask my love, what do you need to make the wild heart beat? Ask this of those we love. Ask this of ourselves. And let our answers be the good news. It must have been sometime in the 60s that Ray Charles recorded an album called We the People, I think. And he has a version of that song that is, lift every voice and sing till the day heaven ring. It's so fun and so powerful. Hold the power and the beauty of young flowers, of spring becoming underneath that snow, of a beautiful blue sky warming our way forward, and have faith and trust in the patience and the courage and the strength and the love and the hope that will drive us through this time and get us to the beautiful spring days that are coming. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen.